Jackson Pollock, Picasso, Da Vinci didn't find their art style. They stole their art style. Let me show you what Jackson Pollock did so that you can copy paste his strategy and find your art style in as little as a couple of days max. In 1940, Jackson Pollock doesn't have an art style and he desperately needs an art style if he wants to be taken serious as an artist, if he wants to feel good about himself. He stands in his studio in New York and he looks at a blank canvas that reflects the emptiness of his life, filled with despair and alcoholism. Now, by that point, he has been trying for many years to become an artist. He has been trying for many years to find an art style, and nobody liked his art. Nobody bought his art because it sucked. And in 1942, Jackson Pollock meets Lee Krasner. Both of them are exhibiting, and so they meet each other through the exhibition and they start dating. Now, in the early days, Lee Krasner is paying all of the bills. And so what happens if your girlfriend in the early 20th century is paying the bills? You'll feel depressed. You don't feel like a man. You feel absolutely worthless. You feel like a parasite, and so that's exactly what Jackson Pollock felt. He felt terrible. But Lee Krasner didn't agree with that. She saw something in Jackson Pollock. She would often say to him, "Jack, I know there's something unique within you. I can see it, I can feel it." Now, Jackson Pollock is not a dumb guy. He knows that Lee eventually will leave him. He knows that time is ticking. He knows that in the post-war art scene that is very saturated, he needs to distinguish himself. He needs to find something unique. He needs to find something that stands out. He needs to find something recognizable. He needs to find an art style. The good part is that there are some critics who start to notice Jackson Pollock. The bad part is that they have nothing good to say. They think his abstract art is chaotic and lacks discipline and is just rudimentary. Now, these critics are talking about abstract art, the art form that can be performed by 7-year-olds, the easiest art form in the world. And Jackson Pollock cannot even do that. And in 1946, the strangest thing happens. Jackson Pollock, depressed, under influence, he's drunk, walking in his studio. You can imagine, drunk walking in his studio. He sees himself as an absolute fucking loser. He's bitching at this moment, He's just a bitch, complaining about all sorts of problems in his life. And drunk as he is, he accidentally spills over a paint bucket that falls on the floor, on top of a canvas, and just makes a strange pattern underground. And oh my god, Jackson Pollock looks at it and he instantly knows what happened. He instantly knows that this is the point that history will change, that this is the point where everything in his life will be turned around. A genius spark of the divine comes to him, and he sees the potential, and he starts to experiment with this idea. He starts to, instead of using large brushes or like just traditional equipment, he starts to use like palettes and starts to do wooden sticks to like try paint, and he pours paint on top of canvases. The canvases are laying on the ground at this point, and he's just making these strange things. And lo and behold, he invents abstract expressionism. He invents the dripping painting technique. He invents the art style that he is so well known for. And many decades later, not that many, like 1, 2, 3 or something, he starts to sell these for millions, tens of millions of dollars. Everybody loves Jackson Pollock. Jackson Pollock becomes the symbol of American art at that time. The whole state loves him. Everybody wants to be Jackson Pollock. Everybody wants to just throw paint on a canvas, laying on the ground, making random chaotic bullshit, and make millions. There's just one problem with the story. This is how they told the story. This is how the mainstream propaganda presented the story to us. This is how they teach it in art schools. This is how the CIA wanted it to be. The reality, however, is something that is much more illegal than this. In reality, Jackson Pollock saw the work of Janet Sobel, who invented dripping technique, who invented this whole abstract expressionism, and then he simply stole it from her. Look at the work of Janet Sobel. And then look at the work of Jackson Pollock and see the similarities. He simply stole it. Now, am I suggesting that you should do what Jackson Pollock did and steal an art style from somebody else? That would in fact be so fast that it feels illegal indeed. But that's not what I'm suggesting. Here's the stepping plan that I suggest you do. Step 1. You immerse yourself in art. You go to the art fairs, you go to the galleries, you go on the internet and you watch art. You surround yourself with artworks and then you take note of what art you like. You take note of the art that moves you, that makes you angry, that makes you happy, that makes you sad, that makes you want to buy it. Just things that move you emotionally. And then once you find those works, you take pictures of them, you take screenshots of them, and you put them in a folder of some sort. You put them in a Notion file or a Pinterest or something where you can store it all and see it all in front of your eyes. Now when you do this and you have hundreds of artworks in your folder, a strange thing is going to happen. You will start to see patterns. You will start to see patterns. Those patterns will become very important. In step 2, this is the famous Jackson Pollock step. In step 2, you will want to steal from those patterns. You will want to take bits and pieces and then start experimenting yourself freely with those patterns, freely with those things that you like, freely with those things that you stole. Just like a child. You're playing around. You're using different mediums. Let's say you are a fan of realism. Allow yourself to tap into some abstraction. Allow yourself to try new things out. Now, don't be afraid of stealing because you are absolutely not doing that. Jackson Pollock was doing that, but you are not doing that. You are having hundreds of artworks that you are inspired by, and then you take 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 pieces of all of those artworks from different artists. Nobody will ever notice. Jackson Pollock steals the entirety, just the entire artwork, all of it, an entire style. You're not doing that, so you don't have to be afraid of that. In this step, you can blatantly steal. Nobody will ever notice. Now, as you evolve and you get older, your inspiration folder will change. The platform that you store it on, Pinterest or Notion or your scrapbook or whatever, might also change, and that's absolutely normal. Your art style will develop through time. Picasso didn't have one art style. He had many art styles and went through various periods, the pink period and the blue period and the cubistic period and all sorts of stuff. This is totally normal. So you don't have to be the perfectionist that tries to force becoming an expert. We live in the 21st century where people are being brainwashed to become experts by the schooling mechanisms. They go to school for 20 years or 21 years, and in those schooling systems, they are being taught to do as they're told and to specialize in one specific direction. You want to avoid this. You want to allow yourself to evolve. Human beings were meant to evolve. It's only in the last 200-300 years that we became these specialists. The only species on this planet that are specialists are fucking insects. Don't be an insect. And so, once you understand this and you allow yourself to change as the tide goes along, as you get older, you find new art styles. Now I want you to note that during this entire process, age doesn't matter. A lot of people in their 40s or 50s or 60s, they feel like it's too late. They feel like they are too old to find an art style. And so let's address this once and for all. Can you ever be too old to do step 1, gathering art? Can you ever be too old for that? Of course not. Can you ever be too old to do step 2, namely experiment with the patterns of resonance that you find within that first step in those artworks that you collected? Can you ever be too old for that? Of course not. And so the answer is that you can find an art style at any age, because an art style, finding an art style, is stealing bits and pieces of other artists' art styles. That's what finding an art style is. And as you are going through step 2, the Jackson Pollock stealing methods, where you steal all sorts of bits and pieces from other artists, there will be moments in time where you feel like you are a thief, where you feel like you are an imposter, where you feel like you are a fraud. What I would recommend you to do is to just play with that. For example, let's say you feel like an imposter because you're stealing bits and pieces. Here's what I want you to do. Take a particular aspect of an artist's work, then copy it. Let's say it's a drawing, you copy it by drawing it over, and then you put the original aside, you take your drawing and you copy your drawing, and then you do that again. But this time, instead of taking 30 minutes, you allow yourself to only take 3 minutes. And so now you have to do it very quickly. You have to focus on a particular element. And then after that, you can take this last piece of drawing that you made and you can play around with that. After 2, 3, 4 iterations, you will not be able to recognize, if you force yourself to make it difficult enough, you will not be able to recognize the original anymore. So now you've stolen, you've influenced, or you let yourself be inspired by the original, but you played around with it in a way that it became unique. Now, as you are doing this, as you are going through step 1 and step 2, you will find yourself being distracted, and you will find yourself to go on social media, and then on social media you see these people that have realistic art styles, that have all sorts of strange art styles that you're jealous of because you might not have your art style yet. On top of that, they are getting thousands of likes and you are getting 17 likes, and so the jealousy creeps in. Well, in those moments, now that you understand how it all works, in those moments you can just simply remind yourself of this video, of what we are talking about, and know that all of those artists that you're jealous of stole from other artists. They just simply stole from other artists. And it's not just the people on Instagram, it's the biggest artists in the world. Jackson Pollock stole from Janet Sobel. Damien Hirst stole his spot paintings from Thomas Downing. Jeff Koons stole one of his sculptures from Art Rogers. These are the best artists in the world. They always say that you have to learn from the best. Now, I'm not suggesting that you have to do literally what they do, because what they do is absolutely stealing. As decided by the judges in court as well. They decided that Jeff Koons stole from Art Rogers in court. So I'm not recommending this. What I am recommending is doing it in a much more subtle way, so that it can be visible, so that nobody will ever know that you stole. And how do you do that? By, instead of stealing entire artworks like these dumbass, loser, best artists in the world, you steal hundreds of pieces, bits and pieces from all sorts of artists, so that nobody will ever know where your inspiration came from. And in order to help you find your art style and create your masterpieces, I've made a free PDF with way more information on how to find your art style than I could possibly cover in one video. Link in the description. And once you find that art style, you will have to figure out how to sell it, how to make money from that art style. And I've explained that in a video, everything I learned about making money as an artist in 10 years. Link in the description and in the end screen. That said, get the hell out of here.